Welcome back to Cinema Flicks Music Picks. I'm Davey, your host with the most, the beast with the least. The least I can do today is tell you about their new album by everyone's favourite Welshman, John Cale. Let's get the bad part out of the way first of all. I've already had to get in touch with Domino Records, who released this. I bought it direct because it came in a hell of a state. First of all, that's dog-eared. But wait till you see when you try and hold this flat, what it actually looks like. That unfortunately has impacted the vinyl too. So the vinyl does not lie flat. I had to put a weight on it to be able to play it, which did work, but I'm not accepting that for a brand new release. So I have emailed them and said, hey, can we get this sorted? I mean, you can see everything's gone right through the whole package. It was not packaged well. It was not in a vinyl mailer. Domino, buck up your ideas. That was an absolute disgrace of a packaging effort. However, it is on, nice, I suppose it's aquamarine or something, isn't it? Vinyl. So 4 sides for it is a double, and it is a true double because there is only one track on here, and there are 12 of them, but there's only one track on here that is under 5 minutes. Only one, barely at that. Yeah, there's your reverse there. I mean, you can even see there's more damage in this corner. Yeah, that kind of picks up a bit of light. See? So it's the whole thing. It's a disgrace, really. There's your. However, we can still review it because I'm bloody returning it. Your gatefold. Luckily, however, because I ordered direct, you still get a high-res stream, so I could take advantage of at least listening to the album. And the reason I went with Domino rather than, well, first of all, I like to support the artist direct, and that's who he sells through. But they also have an exclusive 7-inch single with Pretty People and Mercy full mix featuring Tony Allen. Pretty People isn't on the album. Mercy is obviously the title track, so it's a new mix. But even that's in a really nice sleeve. Yeah, I really like that. It's nice thick stock. So one thing lasted the journey. I'm not sure this is on anything too exciting yet. It's just our good old favourite black. But apart from my woes about the state of affairs when it comes to the condition of my individual album, what about the album metaphysically speaking, so the music? Happy to report his first album since Nicky Wood, and that was 2012. Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. It is John in his 80s still pushing the envelope. There are tracks here that are trip hop. There's tracks here that are shoegaze. There are tracks here that are moody, melancholy. You hear parts of latter day. In fact, David Bowie's Black Star is a good comparison. Gosh, let's hope that isn't too apt a comparison, given Bowie passed away 3 days after release. And what I like is John brings in some guest stars here, and there's a lot of and here's the booklet as well, which is kind of photo book. John brings in a plethora of guest stars here, but none of them overshadow. Amanda from Wise Blood pops up here, and what she does is her vocals add a very Nico-like quality to the track she's on. Which is obviously intentional, because John pays tribute to Nico on this album. There's a track literally dedicated to her. See if there's anything particularly interesting that I've forgotten to show you. Yeah, so this is nice but unessential. On the record itself, as I say, with your 12 tracks, the Story of Blood features Wise Blood, and yeah, it could be Nico singing on that. So that's really no coincidence. And then 2 tracks later, you do get a track called Moonstruck, and then in parentheses, Nico's song. Which, as you'd imagine, if I said it sounds Nicole-esque, is kind of baroque, and, it's not going to be a happy-go-lucky track. Favourite song, definitely Marilyn Monroe's Legs, Beauty Elsewhere. Also features the artist Actress. That's fantastic because John gets to do his baritone, his lovely Welsh tenor. I suppose it can't be a tenor and a baritone. You know what I mean? His lovely John Cale's voice, okay, which still sounds phenomenal. But it's done in a kind of ethereal way where it sounds like he's singing back from the microphone, and it's spacey and all around you. And he also does the high parts himself in a real, like he did on was it on Black Coffee? Let in the cat, out of the bag. Like when he was hitting the really high notes, so he can still hit some bloody high notes in his 80s. You have Animal Collective on here as well, on Everlasting Days. They add some energy to it. So although some of this is very downbeat and very melancholy, in fact I'd say it's pretty much all melancholy, there is still an energy and a movement. So when I say to you that tracks, most of them are 6 minutes, quite a few are 7, and they're melancholy, don't worry, it's still not too much of a downer because it's so musically and sonically interesting and dense that you're going to be attracted to what's happening. And again, the guests add to it rather than take over. It's not a Santana effort, where it gets in the guests and it just becomes one of their tracks and he's in the background just doing a guitar solo in the middle. No, this is very much a John Cale album, that just so happens to feature other young stars. And check out my review on this channel a few days ago of the Wise Blood album because it's fantastic. And in fact, Animal Collective may make my list yet of my ongoing series of the best of 2022. There's a track on here, I Know You're Happy, and the sentiment in that, in fact the chorus is, I know you're only happy when I'm sad. It's like, that's a bit as upbeat as this gets. No, there is the last track on it, believe it or not, Out Your Window, has a sentiment about if you try and kill yourself. So again, we are going pretty bleak. I'll always be there to break your fall if you jump out your window. So right at the end, there's a little trickle of light, even though it's been bleak throughout. So mercy is indeed needed. Time Stands Still, which features Sylvain Esso, has some very timely lyrics as well. There are references in here to things that we know John's going to always be against. So we've got anti-populism statements. There are references, some oblique, some not so much, to climate change deniers, and especially the track The Legal Status of ICE, over who has responsibility for the climate change catastrophe. That also features the Fat White Family, and it's a bit of an odd track. It's the second to last track in the album. But yeah, and he deals with there's a few lines in here about guns in America, and so you're getting themes that develop, and they're not themes that are 100% original. I mean, they are things that plenty of artists have made music about in the last 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, for populism, with the rise of Trump and Brexit, and etc., etc. But then what makes it different perhaps here is that other artists, when they do that kind of more protest-like thing, they won't do it as sonically interesting as this. John's production on here just gives it such an interesting twist on how to get a message across. And there are moments in here, just piano lines that will throw back to some of his 70s work. There was a part that I thought, that's the piano line from Gun, from way back when. Overall, you're not going to confuse the album with Paris 1919 or Fear or Vintage Violence, not at all. It sounds a very modern album, but what it also doesn't sound like is an old guy trying to be modern. It sounds like he's just naturally always been someone who's curious. And as we know, a young Welshman who went to New York 60 odd years ago and took his chances, that is what he is, a naturally curious artist. So he isn't someone who's faking it. He isn't doing a Tom Jones and trying to stay in with the young crowds. John's just always musically, what's new, what's interesting. He's not one for looking back. He was never going to do a rock and roll covers album. But he will push forward. And I hope this, again, first in a decade, but I hope this isn't the last we hear of John. I hope he has alluded to, hopefully, it comes to fruition, that he's kind of hit a creative well and thinks he's already working on the next record. So here's hoping. It would be great to return to the early 2000s, where we had quite a few within us, just 2 years, and an EP in the middle, before Black Coffee and after Homo Sapiens. And yeah, it'd be great to get, and then Circus Live a few years after that. So this holds up very well to the John Cale catalogue. As with most John Cale, it's impossible to rank. I mean, you can't compare this to, his output is so esoteric and different. How do you compare this to the Academy in Peril? You just can't. So yeah, it all stands on its own. But in this case, it stands very tall and very proud. Although in my case, it stands not very well because it will just fall over. Look at that. That is just that. That's how it sits. Oh, domino. You're a record company. How do you not know how to ship records? You're not just some guy on eBay. You're a record company. However, I'm going to put a couple of tracks in the comments below. New out today, John Cale, Mercy. Highly recommended for fans of John and for people who want to see a vintage artist, a vintage violence artist, still being able to push forward but not sound like he's keeping up with the kids, sounding perfectly organic. So yeah, I don't rate things on this channel, but thumbs up for John. And he was very nice to me the one time I met him at the Glasgow dear departed O2 in Glasgow, on Sucky Hall Street. He complimented me on my Bob Dylan t-shirt that I was wearing at the time. So my sign off at the end is stay safe out there and love and mercy. Took from the Brian Wilson song, and there's the connection as well because John wrote Brian Wilson, the song Mr. Wilson, and then this song's called Mercy. But so love and mercy to you and your friends tonight. Ties in everything to small world. Anyway, stay very safe out there and love and mercy, my dears. Love and mercy.